It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays. And I am going to get into the topic of Wellness Wednesdays. But at first, I want to do a bit of an announcement. I asked the patrons last week whether they found that there was too much duplication with Wellness Wednesday and It's Not Therapy. And a lot of them said yes. Um, and what they suggested, because I said I want to go back to doing some gaming content. People like it, they miss it. Um, and Wellness Wednesday seems to be the thing that, there's a redundancy with It's Not Therapy. And what the consensus seemed to be is to go every other week instead, to try that. So next week, there's going to be gaming content in this space. Now, you can get It's Not Therapy on YouTube. It's Not Therapy has its own YouTube channel. The podcast just populates too. It's in the description box of this video. You can sign up for that to get your weekly, mostly weekly. I take some weeks off to catch up because it's a lot of work to do 48 minutes a week. 42 some. No, I don't remember right now. It's on my timeline. But yeah, it's a lot of work to do that whole thing. Um, and so we're going to try that. We'll see how it goes. But this is the importance of being a patron, because these are the people who are willing to pay for what I do. So their opinions come first. So help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. There's no substitute for that one-on-one stuff. Except for some of the group stuff that we've also been talking about on Patreon. I gave the patrons a list of topics to prioritize in terms of some group workshops that we're going to be doing. So I'm really excited about that. I was hoping to have it out in March, but I kind of took the temperature, and with food inflation being what it is, even it's going to be like $10 a ticket or something. Even that is, maybe let that come down a little bit before I launch. Spring, before it gets really summer weather, I think it's probably ideal to try this. But that's where it's at, and that's sort of what I want to talk about this week. The Manly Monday was on it was on trauma and anger. And I want to talk a little bit more about the getting stuck in trauma here, because that was a big part of it. That, when you're coming out of that numb or depressed feeling, you do feel angry when you're coming out of trauma. And then when the anger subsides, you start feeling all that fear and pain and shame. I didn't mention the shame on Manly Monday, but there's a lot of that too, because, oh my God, all the self-recriminations start coming in, and so you don't want to feel that, so the anger kicks in, and it's this waffling back and forth, right? And that's what makes it so hard to make the positive changes that healthy anger inspires you to do. And there are a lot of people I talk to where, their own families are help keeping them stuck, and there's nothing they can do about that. We have to work around the families. We have to work at reworking that relationship to the family, so that when they get a negative reaction from their family, it doesn't derail the recovery. And a lot of people who are really profoundly traumatized, they do that fawn thing I talked about in the freeze, fight, fawn, or fight. freeze, fight, fawn, or flight, uh, you know, response. And the fawning is the need to make everybody happy and comfortable so everything stays on an even keel. And that's a completely understandable response to, in the past, being a punching bag when somebody wasn't comfortable. The issue is the more you do that, the more you erode the sense that you matter. Because if you're constantly meeting everybody else's needs and wants, not because you want to, because you feel like you have to be safe, you're not meeting your own needs. And I, talked to a long-term friend that I hadn't spoken to in a while because I had a really nasty row with this person's husband, and I suspected there might be abuse, so I backed off so that I wasn't making things worse because I was afraid that, oh God, he's coming at me, and I couldn't avoid the conflicts because it was a job thing. But I was afraid if I was talking to her, he'd be pissed at me and he'd make it worse on her. And she finally decided to leave I won't call him a name, leave the very angry person. And so we were talking over the weekend. It was nice, but it was hard. Because of that feeling of sometimes the best thing you can do is to do nothing. And, support them when they're getting out, but you can't do it for them. And there were, part of the reason I suspected abuse is there were a few times I saw her, sweetest lady in the world, but she'd do things that were sort of not okay, but I got the sense she was doing them out of a survival thing. Like throwing somebody under the bus or something like that. And I was right in my instincts, and I told her that, when we get settled, let's go for lunch or something, like coffee, because she knows she has to heal, and she said as much, and that was good. It was nice to reconnect, and to be able to say, like, look, based on my own run-ins with the dude, I believe you. I think that meant a lot. When you're in that situation, being believed is so important because you self-gaslight, because you're fawning over trying to, people please because you feel like you need to, not because you want to. You're not meeting your own needs. And the reason I keep saying, just if anybody's wondering why, because you need to, not because you want to, is I am a person who likes, this is my alpha tendencies. I believe that, if we're at a party and people are getting really drunk, I go into maintenance mode. I make sure they're okay. I make sure they're eating. I make sure they're hydrating. I enjoy that. I know that may sound weird. In part, it's because I know what to do with myself when everybody's really drunk. It keeps me busy. But also, I want to make sure or taken care of. It's just an instinct I have. And I know I don't have to. I know it's not my problem. I choose to. It's the good side of my very assertive nature that some people call pushy, you know? That's because I want to. I do peer counseling and, artist coaching and stuff like that, and I enjoy that. People are like, how do you carry around people's problems all day? I don't consider it carrying around people's problems. I'm sharing in their successes. That's awesome. People who want better for themselves, that's awesome. I choose that. I don't need to. It's when you feel you need to, and that's an intergenerational family thing. That, my maternal grandmother was a lot like me in that she had an oh hell no look. I made my friends who were over, they came over to raid my costumes and everything like that for a thing they're doing. It was a lot of fun too. Like, again, it's like, yeah, take my stuff. I don't care. Don't take it. It's just sitting in my closet. You sure? Take it. Give it back when you can. But they were talking about resting bitch face, or what do they call it? RBF. And I said, I call that silent assertiveness. And they all started laughing because it's like, yeah, I can get stony, people can get on my bad side, but I own that. And that is a big part of me not being afraid of the world, right? Because one of the ways I got very badly taken advantage of when I was younger is I do not have that thing in me that worries over much what people think. And it was used against me because it was like, well, if somebody has a problem, they'll tell me right, wrong. That was naive. And so out of trauma, I became hyper fixated on what people thought of me because I was told to by various people. This is the problem with being in the entertainment industry, right? It's, oh no, you got to make people like you. Something I'm not good at. People are going to like me or they're not going to like me. I cannot make people like me. I don't have that thing in me that makes me an effective people pleaser. It's like, this is what you get, like it or don't. There's a lot of good. There is some stuff I recognize is challenging. That's me. You want the good? There's the challenging thing. Because again, the thing that makes me assertive enough to take care of people in crises, I'm very good in a crisis. But the thing that makes me be able to do that is a lot of decisiveness. And so, I'll be, okay, how's this? With this, what do you think? And that is too much for some people. And so I get branded pushy and difficult. And enough about games, my games journalism days. And I say that because I think it's hilarious. Like, I think back and how frightened so many of these so-called lefties were by me coming in and going, no. And that's what was great about, the year I was at The Escapist is one of the managers was a woman there who was the same way. She was like, no. And so it was amazing. I'd work for those folks again. None of them are there anymore. The Escapist is a skin suit right now run by other people. But I'd work for any of them. Again, they're good people. Who appreciated my brassiness. Brassy. There we go. Wah, 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 wah. It's the end of Cuphead. The Cuphead theme song. Good show, by the way. Anyway, I'm digressing. That getting comfortable with people not liking me after having my life destroyed by someone who was not just physically violent, but very emotionally manipulative, like to spread rumors about people, like to lie about people, like to take things that she did and say somebody else did them. And she was just so adamant that people believed her. You know, that's the person who vandalized my Wikipedia page to the point that it got, and because she got her page removed as not notable because she put it there herself, she made a concerted campaign to get my page gone. That's why it happened. I don't care. But, you know, I think when I talked last week about the whole Wikipedia thing and how people tell on themselves, that would have been terrifying around 2012, 2013 for me, because it was like, oh God, my life is going to be ruined again. You know, and this person is going to follow me places and menace me, and no one's going to stop her because she can follow me into the bathroom. You know, if you wonder part of the reason I am so pissed off about the whole trans people in bathrooms thing, that's a big part of it. And that's not the first person who's threatened me or menaced me or assaulted me in a bathroom. It's happened. I used to work clubs. Used to get, you know, when other women would get physical with me all the time. And they were drunk, so they could be really crazy strong, right? Not very coordinated. So what you kind of do is you kind of like move to the side, like a Dark Souls roll, and, right? You didn't take them on. You didn't try to overpower them because they were crazy strong, but they were uncoordinated. So, yeah. But, you know, things like that are a sign of healing. But I remember how, and it didn't start there, right? It's going back to when somebody stabbed me with a fake knife in the 3rd grade. And that terrifying moment where I thought I'd actually been stabbed. You know, and that this is the fluffier stuff I talk about in public. There's stuff that's a lot scarier, but nobody did anything about it. It happened in a school. Back then, oh, that's just kids being kids. It wasn't. It was intended to scare people. But, you know, that stuff still goes on and nothing's still done about it. And people come out of adolescence with trauma. And again, I'm only talking about the fuzzy stuff. I'm not talking about the really hardcore stuff, because there are members of my family that are still in denial and it causes problems when I talk about it. And I don't need to talk about it on YouTube, so that's fine. That's their trauma, right? And I don't feel the compelling need to talk about it in a public space enough to traumatize them by forcing them to deal with it before they're ready, if they're ever ready. But there are a lot of people walking around with trauma and fawning all over people to appease, and then ending up really unhappy, and so they lash out and do like this weird vengeful stuff. And I see it again and again and again. And a lot of them can't admit they're traumatized because they think what happened to them wasn't that bad. Because it's not like a violent assault or you know, it's not the physical violence that gets you. Trust me. It's the sense of being powerless. It's the sense that someone can mess you up and you can't do anything about it. That's the thing that stays with you. So that can be psychological torture. That can be social manipulations. That can be, you know, everybody turning against you in the 7th grade. Or 5th grade. Or 3rd grade. Or whatever. This is all stuff that needs to be processed. Or you're going to end up in freeze, fight, fawn, or flight mode for the rest of your life. And the fact that we call it fight or flight, if you're someone like me who had a developed fight instinct, it gets seen as a big problem. And in some ways, it's like, okay, they force you into some sort of treatment. If you get lucky and get somebody good, okay, then you're on the path to recovery. Awesome. But those fawners, because we talk about freezing now in, the whole discussion of violence against women and sexual harassment, sexual abuse. So we know people freeze, but we don't understand that fawn response for what it is. And you see it in a lot of these, I'll call them social crusaders, the Twitter activists or the Tumblrinas that'll come at you hard. And then when you basically go, you put your hand on their head and go, nope, then they start fawning. And it drives me nuts. And it's tough because I know it's a trauma response, but it's not my responsibility. That's a person who is not trustworthy because they're not in control. They will lash out and then fawn and lash out and fawn. And that's the cycle. And people get diagnosed with a whole bunch of stuff. Bipolar is a big one. But even some personality disorders. And what it really is trauma. The thing about fawners is it's very difficult to get them to face the trauma because they'll get mad at you and then try to appease you and get mad at you and try to appease you. And because it's so, I'll say noisy, like freeze is quiet. Running away is kind of quiet. Fight, well, anger is not as immediately acceptable as, oh, do you need anything? I'm so sorry. But if you've ever dealt with someone who just seems to feel so bad about, they're groveling instead of, the proper Cliff Steele from Doom Patrol apology. I'm stupid. I fucked up. I'm sorry. They'll get stuck on the I'm stupid part, right? The stuff starts self-flagellating. That is a fawner. And the problem with that is they'll do it and then they'll resent you. They will get angry because they felt forced to do it. And you didn't force them. They thought they had to because of past trauma. And as much as you recognize that for what it is, those are the people that will falsely accuse you of abuse. Because for them, it's not false. For them, they really do feel like you made them humiliate themselves. You didn't. Their past trauma did, but you were the one that they associated with that feeling in that moment. And it makes fawn trauma, the fawning trauma response, really, really, really difficult because it really gets in the way of establishing trust. Now, if you're a fawner, you're not a danger to everybody around you, not necessarily, because there are levels, right? This one guy, dear guy, and he knows he's a fawner, and at this point, I just say to him, you don't have to do that. Saying you're sorry once is enough. I believe you. But he's aware, right? And so, and what it comes down to is a need for control. And so you have to feel like You can be in control of social circumstances to a degree without fawning. And the truth is, you can't be, because you can't control other people. And fawning is an attempt to control other people. And again, that's not the same as doing nice things for people to do nice things. And what I tell myself after my own period with that stuff is that when I think about doing something for somebody, it's like, will I be okay with doing this even if they don't reciprocate? Because I've seen a lot of people, they give, and then they get upset that other people don't give in the exact same way. And people aren't going to give in the exact same way. They give in other ways, you know? And some of it might not be stuff you read as giving. Others is. That's what communication's about. But that resentment that gets built up, and I mean all of the trauma responses, the freeze, fight, flight, or fawn. I was a completely different order than I did in the past, but all of them come with a fallout period, right? I know when I have to fight, I'm pissed off I had to. I don't like being put in that position. I don't like fighting. I don't mind arguing if it's effective. I don't like fighting. I don't like it when things get really ugly. I don't like having to be analyzing whether somebody's going to take a swing at me. Don't like it. Pisses me off. You can see it, right? I don't like it when I have to worry that somebody's pulling shenanigans behind my back. Irritates the fuck out of me. It's unnecessary. Grow the fuck up. Stop lying. You know? Don't like it. So after I do it, I'm pissed. Because it's unnecessary. You know? I don't like it when I have to drop an entire group of people because it's toxic. I'm pissed off about it. But, you know, that's why it's walking away, not running away. And, you know, I don't like it when something so shocking happens that nobody knows what to do at first. You always realize woulda, coulda, shoulda after the fact. Well, we were all shocked. So there's self-recriminations there. But the fawning, people are embarrassed because they know they groveled. And that's hard. You know, it's embarrassing. I remember after the fact feeling so humiliated that I did that. That's part of the reason I decided I have to stop. You know, I'd rather somebody abused me than abuse me for them. I'm not going to do their work for them anymore. Enough. You know, and that everybody has to hit their point themselves, like my friend did. Because often there is some sort of economic reason that people stay in those situations. So it's very real. But what do you do? Well, recognizing the behavior for what it is, really understanding it, and being gentle and compassionate with yourself about the recognition, the realization that you do these behaviors. I'm not proud of the physical fights that I have been in the past. They're fucking funny stories that are very me, but I'm not proud of them. I wish they hadn't happened. I would have preferred it not get to that point. You know, there were a few where I did snap. And if I was the person then who I am now, I would not have done that. You know, I'd know that snapping isn't being tough. It's not being strong. It's being overwhelmed. It's being past your limits. There are other ways. But I didn't know those ways at the time. And that's why I want to be of service to people so that they can get where I got, you know, in a place where I generally like myself. I know that there are some risks. You know, there's never enough money. There's never enough time. you know, to do. There's never enough sleep in the world. Um, but, you know, I'm much more secure than I was growing up. Oh my God. Growing up in poverty, not fun. Um, but, you know, if I can help people get there faster, that they like themselves and they feel secure in themselves and they feel like they can solve some of the problems they have. They don't feel helpless, they don't feel powerless. They can take steps for the better that they deserve. You know, I'm going to do it. And that's why I do this stuff. So, you know what I'm going to say now? Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. My schedule got super screwed up by daylight savings time this week. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Thanks for watching and be well.